Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Got a lot of interesting things to get to. Starting off the year of chaos, which I want to talk a little bit more about in a brief introduction. But first, I want to address something. I covered a series of comments that were critical or negative towards me and my channel by people who claimed to like my content. One person even said, "I love you, Paul." But then there was all these little, demands and well, if you guys heard the video, it was the end of my New Year's Eve video. I'm actually going to get into a little bit of the New Year's Eve coverage here. Comedian roasts 2024 and says some interesting things to Anderson Cooper and his buddy there. Some other things I want to talk about that. But this people were complaining about little things that they would like to see improve in my videos, which I've talked about in so many different ways and times. That there's a clear boundary there that I'm not looking for you to critique my videos. I'm not taking your feedback, right? And one of the reasons is there's two things I want to talk about: gratitude, love, and relationships. I'm going to give the keys to the kingdom of how to have a blissful relationship with somebody in a marital situation and relationships in general with people who can receive it. And that's going to be important too, right? So I'm going to talk about that with gratitude. But one reason I don't need feedback is, doing the Mark system for so many years, and I didn't have any of these qualities or abilities beforehand. So it was exclusively for me. I mean, certainly living my life, they were there, right? You either have a sensitive heart or you don't, and you can get a sensitive heart. I want to talk about that in a Gratefulness meditation video, how people can become more sensitive in terms of their spiritual experiences. Some techniques they'll be given in the next couple of weeks or something. But if a person puts effort into developing their heart, which they should, which I had no idea when I was in my early 20s, didn't care about it, but now I take great value in it and see how beneficial it is, even though it can be painful because now you feel things on a heart level, and a lot of what you're going to feel isn't great given the current circumstance of the world, right? But one of the techniques or one of the things you develop is that you listen when you're talking. When you're talking, you're listening for feedback, or you're feeling the feedback you're getting from people, right? And there's going to be the emotional butthurt responses, which are superficial ego defense mechanisms that are triggered by people that have there's nothing there. It's of no value. It's of no consequence. It's just what people react on an ego level because they don't want to hear the truth. So when I'm talking about Trumpers and there are people who are, are delusional about Donald Trump, they're going to get angry, right? They're going to get whatever they're going to feel towards me, and that's not my problem. That's not a real reaction. But then there's the reaction that people have on a heart level, and most people are so disconnected from their hearts, they don't know what they're feeling or why they're feeling it. What they do, but you can hear when you hurt somebody's heart, like you can feel the feedback. Now, when I do these videos, I know there's different sort of demographics and different orientations to the world. I know that some group will be upset about this or that. I can feel it while I'm talking about it, and the information is flowing through me. Oftentimes, I don't care about any of it. It's not like I have some agenda or some whatever. A little bit of part of me likes to push buttons and troll, but that's again inconsequential to the whole thing because it has to be done. But what people are getting here in terms of that is some level of something that is making them feel something on a deeper level, a level that they're not really connected to, so they don't understand what they're feeling, right? People don't understand their feelings. And there's a distinction between emotions and feelings. Emotions are something, hatred, anger, fear, right? And these other kind of, lust and appetites and things that you feel in your gut. And there's like those things are lower level. Feelings are higher things are connected to your soul. So feelings are a deeper like compassion and just pain in your heart, love and all the things that are there, right? That are on a higher level, that are like real feelings, as opposed to animalistic emotions, right? You might have an emotional reaction and you're triggered, but what's beyond that? Like what's really deep down beyond that? Like if penetrating to a deeper level of understanding of what's going on inside of you, and people are just not capable of doing that, right? So there's the emotional reactions that really just have to be ignored by me or anybody else that people have, especially if they're in the business of truth. But feelings, when someone has, like, if I'm talking and I've hurt somebody's heart, like for whatever reason, I've said something that's hurt their heart, if it's personal or whatever, I can feel it in my heart, like I can feel it. And it doesn't feel good because I'm experiencing what they're experiencing, because there's a level of communication that happens. And this is something that's developed by the Sizemore system. And, it's pain is like the pain of the heart is beyond words. So there's that. So this is the idea of listening while you're talking. And then you can feel what the reaction is. I mean, when you're in a crowd of people, of course, it's going to be more complicated, but certainly on a one-on-one level, you're going to feel the reaction of the other person, right? But this is the part that I said was the keys to the kingdom, right? This is, information I've learned over a number of years, how to be in a successful, healthy, loving relationship. And so, specifically for these people who are complaining, and, they find value in what I do here. They like what I do, but some small little, Seinfeldian little things are bugging them. And they can't reconcile that it has to do with them. It has nothing to do with me. It's not something that I have to change. It's something that they have to change, because whenever you're going to receive something or you're going to be in a relationship with somebody, when you're, whatever the dynamics are, the relationship, you're going to find things that you don't like, or the person's going to have things that you're going to consider flaws. But it's a whole, a person's a whole person, right? They have the good, the bad, the ugly. They're going to have characteristics that, might rub you the wrong way. And there might be things that are actually good characteristics. It's just you can't receive them that way, right? But whatever I do here, like in this case, my channel and what I present, the good things that you're getting, the things that you're receiving, the beneficial things that are helpful, whatever the things that you like about what I do here, there's always going to be some things that you can find if you are looking for them. And most people are. Most people are looking for the negative, looking for something to complain about, looking for something that's going to irritate them, looking for something that needs improvement, looking for something that they think the person shouldn't do. And if you're approaching something that you're getting something from, like if you're receiving things from these videos, and me personally, and you find things that you consider character flaws or, irritants or whatever it is, imperfections in me or whatever, small little things that you see, like you always can find something. Like I said, like I know this more than anybody else because I'm observant, right? Like sometimes I'm just lost in my own world when I'm out in public, and things could happen I wouldn't even notice. Like I'm just so, with my own thoughts or withdrawn inside myself. Some of this has been enhanced by the meditation, but it's always been there. But sometimes I'm really observant and I see things other people don't see. Like certainly in characters, people's characters and, things that are doing, sometimes I can really look at people and really see, in depth to their personal struggles, and I'll just know things and information will come to me, right? And so there's always going to be flaws you can find in another human being and in a situation, right? I mean, it's like with the masters of the Sizemore system, people who got close to them and spent time with them would start seeing their human side and not their spiritual side. And then they would start having doubts, and they would start, seeing flaws, and then start thinking they know more, right? Because, your kids start having complaints about you when they're teenagers. They look at you and they can see through you. Like when they're little kids, you're like a god to them, and they just think their parents are, they don't really have these thoughts. I don't know when you start having them, 7, 8, 9, 10, but certainly when you're a teenager, you start seeing the issues your parents have, you see the human flaws, and then all of a sudden, like, you lose respect for them or whatever. Like, we all go through this kind of thing, and yet we haven't achieved what they have in terms of, like, we're selfish. You're a kid, you're selfish, and you're not really contributing much of anything. Certainly in our society, there's not much for you to contribute. Like for me, like, I changed diapers for like frickin' 8 years, right? Like, and I've made meals. I've made meals and changed diapers and done things, and whatever it is, just mundane fucking stuff that they have no idea about. Like, they don't appreciate. They're not grateful for it. My kids, all the stuff I did for them, and they could never repay that. Like, in terms of, not that they're supposed to. You're a parent. You're supposed to do these things as just out of a sense of, like, what you're supposed to do as a parent, right? But we don't appreciate what our parents did for us in terms of all the things they did to keep us alive, all the shit they had to eat at work, all the things that they had to go through to keep the lights on, the roof over the head, the families had all these things, all the things they had to do to just I mean, being depressed at times, having your own emotional reactions the kids are oblivious to, your own struggles, and it goes unappreciated. And even when you become a parent, and you start seeing where your parents were limited, like, you see, oh my God, they sucked at this and that, but then you realize how hard it is, all the things that you have to do, and maybe you feel some sense of gratitude, right? And so, in all this, what I'm saying is, human beings are flawed, and you may or may not find real flaws in your ability to interpret data. But if you're looking for them all the time, then you're going to be lonely and miserable. And if you're pointing them out to people all the time, you're going to be lonely and miserable. And it may or may not be your job. Sometimes it is. Like, sometimes somebody needs, like, an intervention. But usually, people don't want to change. So you telling people they have to change doesn't work. And I can say this from a long life of being a counselor and being a spiritual, whatever guide, preceptor, and doing the work that I do here, that telling people, oh, this is what sucks about you, you need to change it, almost never works. Like 99.9% of the time. It only works when people are seeking change and they're seeking feedback, right? Because they could know already. They should know already. Most people know what they have to do on some level, just refuse to do it. I mean, that's why the world is what it is. People are knowing that they're doing wrong. They shut off the feedback mechanism in their hearts and in their internal world. They've desensitized themselves to their mistakes, but they keep on repeating the same mistakes, and the what people call the universe is giving them feedback and saying, no, this is not, you shouldn't be doing this, and you shouldn't be doing this. And they keep on doing it anyway, right? So all the comments and all the, social media battles of, oh, you suck, no, you suck, the Democrats suck, oh, this is why you suck, Republicans suck, this is why you suck, right? The sheeple suck, this is why you suck, the truthers suck, this is why you suck, right? People saying that to you, and you saying it back, it's pointless, because nobody wants to change, right? They just want to see how other people suck, right? And that's why they're miserable and alone. Because when you love somebody, if you see something being beneficial, so if you find somebody who's actually, worth loving and who can receive love, because oftentimes, which I found out painfully as I went through my divorce and, I was single for a while, especially you see this with women, which makes no sense at all, because women are better at being loved and have more of a need for being loved. They're better at loving naturally because they're the mother thing, right? The female version of a human being has a natural innate capacity to love and be loved, and there's a need for love, right? Like, everybody needs love, but men are kind of oblivious to it. They have to be taught the value of love, where women feel it right from the beginning. It's inherent to their being a mom and being loving, and the value of love has to be there, because otherwise you'd be a shitty mom, right? That's the advantages that women have in terms of their spiritual development. They already have a natural inclination to connect to God, right? But even with that, what I found out that, women, if you ask them, most of them would say, yeah, I really want to be loved, right? Or I want to be in a relationship where I feel love. But there's a, lack of feeling of deserving it. And so there's a knowledge of the idea that, oh, I just want to be loved, but then picking men that are incapable of loving them. And then when they feel love, they run away from it, right? Because there's some sort of unresolved psychological torment there. And so, like, it's a sad thing, right? But if you find somebody who can allow themselves to be loved, right, which is, a hard thing to do nowadays. Usually most people are already married, depending on when you're, in the stage of your life. But also, I'm talking about, like, dealing with this YouTube channel. It could be any number of relationships. But if you find something that is beneficial to you, right? You find something that is good for you. This is why so many people quit Saj Marg who felt the energy. There was a guy who, was around Master Charji, and he was a tortured soul. Like, he was somebody who I found interesting. He was a funny guy. But you can see he's got psychological issues and, self-sabotage, whatever it is. And he quit the Saj system for a while, and he came back. He was somebody that was in Chargie's inner circle. And he said, you know, he was trying to tell Chargie why he quit. And Chargie goes, that's not why you quit. And he said, well, why did I quit? He goes, well, you can't be loved. You don't feel like you deserve to be loved. You can't, you can't, it's like you've sabotaged this thing, right? And so most people, when you find something good in your life, some people that are good in your life, you find something that has value, you find a way to Seinfeld your way out of it, right? I give the example of that Seinfeld episode where George and Jerry are both, they're sitting in the diner, and Jerry goes, we're not men. And so, like, they're not moving on with their lives because they have all these superficial relationships. And they both decide to go out and get engaged with their girlfriends. And George asks his girlfriend to marry him, where Jerry is about to, but he sees that she's eating her peas one at a time. And for that reason, he can't conceive of being with her for the rest of his life, right? Some petty little thing like that, right? Something that you could easily ignore. But there's always going to be something like that. There's always going to be some reason for you to reject something that's good for you and self-sabotage. And people do that because of some sense of shame or guilt or, and feeling not deserving or whatever the fuck that's going on inside of people. And so I'm well aware of this. Like, I've experienced it. Like, women who said that they want to be loved, but deep down they don't. They, as soon as you give them the love that they crave, they start, like, looking for an out, right? Like, it's they say they want this thing. And I mean, men too, but, women, which is, like I said, are more aware of this need. And then once they feel that they're being loved, they push back and find a way to sabotage that situation, which is a sad thing. And here, in terms of this YouTube channel, I know at the higher end of what's offered here, it's not offered from me. It's what I've received from the Sage-Mark system. It's available through, the divinity within each person. And the higher level information, the higher level energy that's here at this YouTube channel is, I know how great it is. Like, not because it's me, but because it's what I benefited from. Like, I've reaped the benefits from the same thing. And even from doing this work, I reaped the benefits from it. I've gone through my own emotional reactions and petty things and, wanted to quit over the years for various reasons, quit for a short period of time. But I always came back knowing that, this is the real thing. To my credit, like, not letting my egotistical desire for failure or control, the ego wanting control and not wanting to let go of the reins, so to speak. So when I get comments like this from people, the comments that I read, I might as well see if I still have that comment. There was 3 different comments. This person left a long one. And it's, I love to listen to your videos since a decade. This person has like I think maybe is German. Then they were funny as my kitten and shorter. Haven't missed any. Now I am is mostly complaining for 2 hours, which it isn't. Like I'm not like I don't care about this stuff. Like how can I complain about things that I'm completely detached from, right? But it is what it is. With one or two funny bits, I barely can make it to the end because my cooking takes about an hour and a half. I'm saying that this person's saying this, not that I'm defensive about it, but I'm not complaining. Like this is how they're receiving it. But this is the part I barely can make it through the end because my cooking takes about an hour and a half. So if I may suggest to cover more topics in shorter ways, so we will not be listening. Tired voice moan about view counts and the weather. Um, when do I talk about the weather? Oh, when I say it's cloudy out or something, because it sounds like my 97-year-old Babsia television. I don't even know what that is. Truly, I love your stories and conclusions, but listening to the show makes me tired after 30 minutes. I want to come back to listen to more, but there is a new 2.4 hour show, and I'm scared to be listening tired voice for 2 hours when fun bits are 30 minutes hidden in the fog. So I will listen half the show once a month because of repetitive info covered in the lava of moan. Seriously, your voice and wisdom are great to listen, very relaxing and grounding. But seriously, there is so much. I have to go to another. It took multiple screenshots to get this comment, and I have to make it bigger now. So that there because Predica Lava Moan. Seriously, your voice is way a great listen, very relaxing and grounded. But seriously, there is so much new great people's research since it's kind of feed algorithms. So I feel FOMO listening to you for hours. 2 hours. Don't want to be stressed and tired when for 10 minutes listening after shadow ban every video I pick. We all are censored. If I message that something, eat less sugar, so we'll be less depressed. Tested it. I'm not depressed, but this is the part. Love you, Paul, and miss old sharp and short of viral videos from before YouTube purge. I would rather watch a few good short shows than one long rant. And then there's the last one here, and I have to make this one bigger. It's I love you, Paul, which is the thing, right? Um, Long run rant with mixed timeline and not much which I can physically go through, and you have great observations, but the way it's presented is just too long and repetitive. Just work less and be a little bit better, because unimaginable having the internet with no Paul Romano and his point of view. The videos are unshareable because of it. Get those black mirrors and statistics. And so and there was a couple other comments like this. It was triggered by me talking about what's going on with my YouTube channel. And, people who listen to me regularly and I say, I'm not looking for your feedback. Like there's always going to be complaints. There's always going to be something you wish I did better or somebody did better, right? But I know something that she doesn't know and all of you don't know because I've been through it and I'm aware of it. That when people get the real thing in their lives, it could be, I'm putting this in terms of like a marital relationship, but they have somebody that's good and that would be a good spouse and they have a soul connection. And it's very rare, there's so few people out there that you could have like you're supposed to be married to, like on a soul level. It's a handful of people. And like everybody's fucked up and everyone's messed up. So it's like having a good relationship. There's just so many people out there that might be like you have something in common with, you might be attracted to, you might have some past lives with, but you're not supposed to be married to that person, right? Like they're just like, you could be friends with them, but it's not part of the whole script and the whole soul, you have a soul plan, right? So whatever it is. So you have a handful of people out there that could be your spouse, significant others, or people are going to be significant to you in some way, a business partner. And it takes both people to work to make the thing work, right? So it's like you have to also be dependent on the other person. And if you're lacking or they're lacking, it could be something great, but it won't be because both people have to have the same level of commitment. And so, there's just people are so warped and egocentric and disconnected from their soul and oblivious to what it takes to be in a good relationship and have such poor training from their parents. Like it's just a crapshoot, right? Like the stars have to align. Also, people are in different phases in their life. They grow apart. There's some people evolve and their spouse doesn't. I mean, there's all these factors that make these marriages suck and relationships suck. And, it's hard because, just doing what you're supposed to be doing is hard enough. And then you have to, drag other people along with you, or, you can't make them change everything I said in the beginning of the video, right? But you can let go of the whole thing and just do what you're supposed to do as what your soul wants you to do and what God wants you to do. You serve God instead of the other people. And you can see it, like this person's comment, because this person isn't somebody who is rejecting what I do here. They find value in what I do here. Like a number of people have left comments like some variation of this. They realize, like this person said, I can't imagine the internet without you. Somebody says they love me, right? And yet all these other petty little stupid things that would be just not only depressing, but would just, be demotivating for me to continue making videos. Like if I took these comments seriously and I took the complaints seriously and I started making shorter videos, and I get another bunch of people going, what happened to the long videos? These short videos suck, and I need the long videos. What's wrong with that? Why don't you go back? It would always be like going back and forth, pleasing people. It might even be the same people. Like this woman would be like, oh, I miss the short videos. I miss the long videos. After going on a rant about all these things, right? Oh, now I'm cooking now for an hour and a half, and I don't have enough. I I need more content from you. Why have you gone? Because it's always going to be that way because it's nothing to do with me, right? It has, nothing to do with what I do here, because it has to do with people finding something good in their life and then finding a way to push it away. And it's a sad state in the affairs of humanity, when all you have to do is focus on the positive and ignore these negative little Seinfeldian voices inside of you that want you to sabotage the things that are good for you, especially the things that are going to bring about the extinction of your ego or the minimization of your ego. Your ego is going to find a way to screw any kind of relationship up with God and these things. This is why people gravitate to religions, because they're just fake and they're not dynamic, and they're not going to make you change, your ego change. This is why people don't really want self-improvement, because the ego fears losing control. And so I've seen it my whole life, especially over the past so many years. It's why the Sajmark system and this clown Dodgy have wrecked the organization that I'm, was once a part of and benefited from. And it's why people fail as saints and spiritual people, even the most higher developed souls, even people like Jesus who had spiritual fall because of it. Like it's just, there's a self-sabotaging desire, or a tendency, not a desire, it's like what's called spiritual gravity, which pulls people down out of the higher levels of spiritual development, and in terms of good relationships and things, good, successful, healthy relationships. The ability for humans to self-sabotage should never be underestimated or ignored. And it's, and be self-destructive. The soul, like the big self, the soul, soul destructive, right? To sabotage their soul's plan and their soul's agenda, and all of it. It's if humanity goes down because of this tendency, a tendency to gravitate to the lower. And so, again, the technique here, if you're looking for it, if you're somebody who's lonely and been in one failed relationship after another, is that you pray and seek out somebody that can rise up to it and feel your love and be affected positively by you loving them, and you love them in a way where you ignore all these little petty things. If out of love you have to help somebody change something that you see as negatively affecting them, you're doing it in a selfless way, not because it irritates you, not because, it's bad for you, but because you know that they need to change something. Then you find a way, in a gentle way, to, help them see what's bothering them. It's a very delicate thing. And sometimes you go through some issues, but all with this idea that you can deepen your relationship and you can make it better. But for the most part, people are being told all the time they're a piece of shit. I mean, all of us in the truth community, we're being told we're wrong and these things. And you don't need petty little, nitpicking and, like you always can find little flaws, something to complain about, and things that you perceive as flaws. But like in my situation, I have some liabilities as a person, right? I have some, I'm far from perfect in the way that I do things, like I get the job done. Like when I cook food, I'm messy, when I fix things, like I eventually come up with some kind of reasonable solution. It could be done a lot better. Like I could be more efficient. Efficiency isn't the problem. It's, I'm a little bit messy and, like I'm not a perfectionist, right? So you have these things. And so there's always going to be things that you can see in me or somebody else, especially when there's a conduit situation. Divinity is flowing through me. This is, the bigger thing, the more important thing. And then the flaws and the whatever I have in my system, the things that you don't like. And why are you focusing on those things? Like, why are you focusing on them, right? This is what it is. These are the videos I have to make the way I'm making them. It's, it's the evolution of this channel. And there's a reason. If I made small, short videos, there would be not enough money, for one thing, and not enough, it's the way it's gone, right? And so I've explained it. I explained it when I did the comment there. But, people want to be catered to. Like, they're giving nothing in return. There's nothing that I'm receiving back from them. But they want personalized attention, and they want, whatever it is. They want to waste my time and energy or whatever, and they want to dump their shit on somebody else. And that's the internet. People want to dump their negativity on somebody else. It's your hatred. The object, like I've said this over and over again, the object of your hate is your hate. The object of your anger, your fear is, whatever it is. But it's the fear inside of you. If it isn't, it's the anger or hatred inside of you. If it isn't this, it'll be something else, right? Deal with that shit that's inside of you that's preventing you from moving forward, that's fucking up your life and making your life miserable and taking you in the wrong direction. And very few people can do that. And I don't expect them to do that. Like, I'm certainly, me telling them to do this or not that or saying it isn't going to do anything, because they know, like everybody knows, they just don't want to do it. They refuse. They're withholding, right? One of the great teachings of Master Charji is that he said, people write to me all the time about wanting marital bliss, but have you given bliss? Like, how can you expect bliss when you haven't given it, right? You want somebody else to love you unconditionally, but you're not willing to do that for that person. So why should you receive something that you're not willing to do? And it's because people don't want to let what's supposed to happen happen. They fear, they want control. The ego wants control. That's why I call these people the controllers. This is why our civilization's built on this idea of control. Just letting go and letting things flow. And, they don't want to ride the roller coaster and feel the pain of life. They don't, they want to prevent these things. That's why we have all this control. We don't want to, life is painful. Life is uncomfortable. There are times that, that life is fearful. There's like things to fear, like real things out there, right? On a predatory level, like, every rabbit, every squirrel, every, bird. I mean, things are trying to eat them and whatever that's going on out there in the natural world. There's things that are real, that are life-threatening out there, right? Diseases and, just life in general. There's, death is waiting for us all, right? People think if they control things and they somehow don't let things in, if they don't let things happen, they'll be able to avoid the inevitability of death and all the things that go along with it, the pain and the suffering and the suffering of loss and these things. And they're all waiting for us. Like, all those things are some scars, the things that we have to suffer, the things we have to endure, the things, the obstacles in our life, they're all there. They're ahead of us. They're going to, there's no preventing them. There's no, just happiness and pleasure, perpetual bliss, right? The struggle's there for everybody in everything. And so, with the desire to avoid all these things is, a Western idea that's proliferated across the world now. And then this, the control of the ego and these things. And that's why people are where they are. And so when something good that represents the path towards letting go and surrendering and allowing life to flow in the way it's supposed to flow, the ego resists and finds a way to fuck it up. It's that simple. And those people who can hear this and recognize this problem within themselves, this will benefit them. Other than that, it'll just fall on deaf ears because, this is where people are. Okay, so let's get into it here. Okay, I shit you not. Hilaria Baldwin has forgot the English word for onion because she hasn't have enough smoke in her life. Remember, she forgot the word cucumber. Now, Hilaria Baldwin is the unique person who was somehow born in Boston, Massachusetts, in the same time was born of Spanish origin in Spain. And she grew up as Hilary Thomas, a very, very white English girl with English and Scottish ancestry in a suburb in Boston with rich, influential businesswoman mom and doctor husband, or maybe that was a reverse, with a doctor and a successful business person as their parents, as her parents. And she somehow, with all of that, developed a Spanish accent instead of the native Bostonian accent that she should have had, right? And in reeling in her much older, famous husband who had a fascination with Spanish-speaking or Spanish accent women, she developed this, this usual tendency, and here it is on full display.
Together. And then my husband hates cebolla.
Onions.
I forgot it. Okay. Cebolla. So he hates cebolla, and so I grind cebolla and ajo together. And then.
Okay. I don't know why he hates onion, but she grinds cebolla, onion, and you had the word. He gave you the word, and then you still started to say it said the Spanish word, because even though she grew up with English as her first language, she thinks of everything in Spanish first. Remember cucumber? How you say in English cucumber, and how you say onion? What is the word for onion? No, not the Spanish word. What's the word for onion? Please. I don't remember such words in English. Because predictably, this is all of this stuff, right? This is there's various people mocking it, right? Here's a woman mocking it.
Hola, my name is Hilaria Baldwin, wife of the famous actor. I don't know.
So they're all wearing this plaid shirt. There's the family doing it. Then there's this video here.
Happy El Nuevo Año or happy...
So all this stuff, right? She has some reality show that I wanted to check out. I never did, her and her husband. And, I kind of want to move on from the whole Baldwins. I'm not going to run the memes. I do it every once in a while. I got so many memes of them, right? I could do the fake. Well, I don't know, whatever. You guys seen it. But, why do this, right? Why in the world are you freaking doing this? When, you just, her husband still, whatever's going on with that court case, that they dismiss it and it comes back around. And, he's just, there's all this hatred for you and your family. And everyone knows this accent's fake as fuck, right? And you keep on doing stuff like this. And their accent is getting worse as she gets older. And she's around only English-speaking people. I mean, in terms of her family and, majority of Americans. And she keeps on, diving in and leaning into this thing when we all know it's fake, right? And there's no love for the Baldwins. It isn't like you have whatever fans have stuck with you. Everyone else is just you're either just a joke to them, or people dislike you. And she keeps on leaning in. Onion, who? How do you say onion? I don't understand. I don't remember the words in English, right? Just so that's Hilaria. Okay, so I wanted to cover this in my last video, but let's just see it here.
Until Donald Trump is sworn into his second term, there's no denying that with some genuine political candidness, Trump has cobbled together an unwieldy and in many respects somewhat unlikely political coalition. And that coalition delivered him the first outright popular vote victory for a Republican since George W. Bush in 2004. It's only the second time it has happened since the end of the Cold War. Now Trump has to actually govern. And that is typically when all the internal contradictions in any political coalition rise to the surface. We're not even to inauguration yet, and that factional fighting, I would argue, is bigger and more glaring than almost any other I've ever witnessed in American politics.
Yeah, is it bigger and glaring because of Trump? Bigger and more glaring?
You're seeing that right now in the battle over immigration, which has been exploding among the MAGA right. Basically, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, the tech overlords who appear to be running Trump's second-term agenda, rely on highly skilled immigrants to power their enterprises. Those immigrants come to this country to work with an H-1B visa, which provides terms that are extremely favorable to their employers and also an amazing opportunity for the folks coming to work here. Folks basically have to stay at their job in order to stay in the country. If they leave their position, they have 2 months to find a new job or risk getting deported. So you can see why someone like Elon Musk likes them so much. For example, this is not abstract. When Musk bought Twitter and a huge percentage of the staff headed for the exits, Vice News reported on how Twitter employees on visas can't just quit. The other side of the debate.
And they would. Right? So, I have a connection to this because doing the meditation that I do, it was, originated in India. And there are a lot of people here who were very successful, in academics in India, and were engineers oftentimes. Like there's a whole thing in India where women become doctors and men become engineers, like successful students in India. That's like one of these two trains, these two tracks, right? And so then there's this thing that the third master of the system called the brain drain. And the mission itself benefited from this, where these guys, and sometimes women, would do really well in Indian educational system, and then they would go to these other countries like England and many in America. And these were the top people in, not just India, but these other countries where they have not as good as a lifestyle. And they have so much more value in America. And I asked, long before I knew about this, before I was doing the meditation, I asked, I think one of my friends in high school or college who was Asian, and who was like an Asian immigrant. And, I asked him about this, and he said, well, because American kids don't want to do math, which we all kind of know, right? American kids don't value their education, their opportunity. And so there is a need for these kind of, smarter, upper echelon, academically more motivated people. And what I noticed about these guys, they were doing well and they were paid well here, but they would have to go in at 4 a.m. Like they would, they were treated like much more like slaves than the American employees. They had to tolerate much worse circumstances because if they lose their job, they have a short period of time to get another one, or they lose their visa. And many of them had houses. They're living here. They've bought property, and their kids are in school. So they're beholden to their job, right? And they're very valuable because their worth ethic is so much more than a similar person with a similar level of education and ability who's American, because they would tolerate a lot more abuse, like this guy's saying. And so the other part of this is there isn't enough American kids that are American students that will be able to fill these jobs. Like some of these jobs, they're just their kids don't want to do them. American kids just don't want to do them for whatever reason, whatever they're, these jobs, the technical aspect, the math aspect, whatever it is. And then there's the third part about this, which Chargy called the brain drain, is that these people in these countries get all these resources put into them, right? And they don't give anything back to their country. Of course, the Indian people that I knew, the Indian people that came to America, their relatives all expected them to send money back. And so, not just their parents, but everybody. Like, it was a whole thing. They had a burden of being rich American, Indians, and they still had a connection to their country. So some of the dollars would go back to India. And so that, I guess, is something. But, they were trained by their system, and then they go and they sell out their skills to some other country, which, is called the brain drain, right? Which is, so it's a whole thing there. It's a little bit of an odd thing. And, your country has provided you with all this education, and you've benefited from the system, and then you just go sell your services, trained you and made you into something, right? But whatever, this is a thing. And of course, Trump and and Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy don't want to get rid of this because their companies wouldn't survive without it, right? It's it's just something where they want the elite immigrants, right? They want the immigrants to have something to offer because, they don't want the refugees and the people that are just going to be, sucking off the system. They want people who are, that have some kind of valuable skills.
Over the H-1B visa is the one that folks like Stephen Miller and Stephen Bannon have been pushing for years. That we should restrict, limit, perhaps end all immigration in the U.S., legal and illegal, right? Stuff at the border around asylum, but also H-1B visas. Just listen to the two of them on Bannon's old radio show back in March of 2016. This is before Trump was even the Republican nominee. Take a listen.
And they see these oligarchs down there with 54 private jets, and they're not down there for their health. They're called together by Karl Rove, and it's a Stop Trump movement. And it's a Stop Trump movement because they want unlimited HB1 visas. Isn't the beating heart of this problem right now, the real beating heart of it, of what we got to get sorted here, is not illegal immigration, as horrific as that is, and it's horrific? Don't we have a problem? We've looked the other way on this legal immigration that's kind of overwhelmed the country.
The history of America is that an immigration on period is followed by an immigration off period.
So be very clear there, right? H-1B visas, legal immigration, and immigration off period. They have a pretty clear vision. Miller's going to be the one writing that border bill. So those two factions of the Republican Party with pretty profoundly different views are at each other's throats about what to do with their newfound power. Should they use the legal immigration system to continue supplying Silicon Valley and other industries with highly skilled workers? Or should they apply some new racist immigrant exclusion act, like the Chinese Exclusion Act, to deport all?
Okay, so here's the thing. The immigration problem has never been about the immigrants. It's been about the people who are willing to pay and hire them, right? And that's so many different people. So many people have either a direct relationship or a indirect relationship with immigrant labor, where you have an immigrant doing labor for you one way or another, whether it be pick your fruit and vegetables that you purchase at the store, or whether you hire somebody to do something. And so rich people, it's an advantage to hire immigrant labor where you don't have to pay the various types of, whatever it might be, especially if it's under the table type of situation. You're not paying any taxes at all. But someone who's not an American citizen, you're not paying all these other things that you're supposed to pay American labor, right? The things with, workman's comp and any number of things, paying them less. That's why and jobs that Americans won't do. There's lots of jobs that Americans won't frickin' do. And you're finding it more and more. American kids won't even do those shitty jobs anymore that you did when you were in high school because they're all fucked up by the internet and this, whatever else is going on in their lives, right? And so this has never been about immigrants. It's always been about the people that hire them. And so, I'm not going to, there's no reason. I saw this issue, and I knew a little bit about it because of my personal situation. But I don't know how many of these jobs will be filled or they'll be left vacant if you get rid of these H-1A, whatever they are, visas. This whole thing, right? Whatever those visas are, those special visas. Because these people who run these companies like Trump, they all hire immigrants, all of them, legal or illegal, and they hire both. And so it's never been about the immigration problem. It's been about the people that are going to, give them incentivize them coming across the border in one way or another. All right, let's move on to the next thing here. Okay, so I watched the New Year's Eve coverage, which I have done the last 2 years, and I don't remember the last time I did before then. Like, I have no interest in the New Year's Eve dropping ball, any of it, right? Like, it's just goofy. It's like watching those parades. I didn't see this. This must have came, what's this, 10:06 p.m. Eastern time. So it was a couple hours before I tuned in at 11, and I just went through the various shows, which I'll talk about in a moment. But somehow this got recommended to me, and I listened to it. It's Whitney Cummings, and she is roasting the year of 2024. And it was okay. Some of the jokes were all right, but I didn't watch the rest of it. Then I think my wife sent it to me. She says some shit at the end about Kamala and Pfizer, which let's watch it here.
24, some things left us, some came back. Sanity left us. Somehow crypto is back. Do you guys even know what crypto? No one thought the timing of crypto was fishy. As soon as women started making money, they were like, money's over. Money's over. I don't even know what crypto is. As far as I understand, it's just astrology for men. 2024 election fried our brains. The Democrats couldn't hold a primary because they were too busy holding a body upright. Are we still rolling? Am I off?
Go for it.
It was amazing that the pro-choice party didn't give their voters one when it came to the presidential candidate. Kamala was forced on us so hard you'd think she was patented by Pfizer or Moderna, whichever one's. Oh, God. Andy just gave me a very scary look.
No!
Let me clear.
So, Anderson Cooper, he laughed there because what you said there is completely true, right? The Democrats haven't had a Democratic primary now the last 3 ones because they rigged it for Hillary, they rigged it for Biden, and they rigged it for Kamala. And they just produced these candidates who nobody really wanted. And, whatever happened with Biden happened with Biden, whatever resulted in him winning. But Hillary and Kamala failed dramatically because they were unlikable. And Joe Biden, I'm not sure about whatever, there's controversy around the way they forced him on the American people as well, right? But she's talking about how they're propping up this corpse and they did this thing, but then she drops Pfizer and Moderna. And these guys know what she's talking about. Like Andy Cohen's laughing. Like she's like saying, oh, am I still on, right? I believe her sister watches these. I think her sister is a viewer of my channel. It all kind of blends together, but there is somebody that I believe is related to her. And so she, these people all know the truth, right? There's some other things she said in there. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But it's saying this on CNN. And Anderson Cooper, he wouldn't dance. He's getting drunk. He laughs. He giggles. Still, he's got that weird laugh. But Andy Cohen's dancing and having fun. And I watched all these various networks. I watched the CBS has a country one, and then there's New Year's Rocking Eve. And New Year's Rocking Eve, they exhumed Alanis Morissette, and with this giantess woman who's also a singer, and they sang "Jagged Little Pill." They sing. I'm sorry, "You Ought to Know." Her album was "Jagged Little Pill." "You Ought to Know," which is her song to David Coulier, who was dating her when she was 15 years old, and then broke her heart. And there was that very bitter song. I don't know, what was that, 30 years ago? And it's not a celebratory song. To sing that song, "You Ought to Know," on New Year's Eve, it's not celebratory. It's not something that's an upbeat song. And are you still bitter? She must have kids and a family. She's really old, Alanis Morissette. And there's a bunch of they rolled out they exhumed Lenny Kravitz and a bunch of other people, and it's just these songs that were old years ago. At least the country one, they're relevant songs. There's one song my wife and I listen to. We're not country music fans. My wife really dislikes it. I can tolerate it, but like just as a, not as a thing that's going to make it onto my phone kind of thing. But it's there's a guy singing a song called Springsteen, and he was kind of mumbled like that one guy from King of the Hill, like it was kind of unintelligible, and then he just says Springsteen, which my wife and I watched and cracked up about. But the country music one was much more relevant because they had Jelly Roll and some of these country music singers that are putting out content right now, where CNN had 50 Cent, right? They just have all these people who are, long past their prime, which is probably a good indication of what's going on with America. But let's watch this thing here.
Let me be clear, though. 2024 was not only negative. The media wants us to believe this country is so divided, but we actually came together a lot this year. Like, as a nation, we unanimously agreed that we would rather see J-Lo in a toxic relationship than in concert. We all agreed the government totally knows what drones are and are telling us. The drones are still up there, and we have no idea what's behind them. No idea. I mean, they're still up in the sky, so I guess we can rule out that they were made by Boeing. The point is, I think we all agree on a lot of things. And since I only have a minute left live on establishment media, why don't we just say a bunch of things that we know that they'll never cover? Okay, ready, go. Trump Shooter didn't have any silverware in his house. No one thought that was weird? Are we still rolling? Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia put money into Disney, so just know there won't be any girl characters in the next Cars movie. Are we still rolling? This is wild. Why have so many presidents' chefs died? Weird.
Because no one cares. Like she's making it sound like saying these things are somehow a threat. CNN isn't going to cover them as a news agency, but her saying them as a comedian is going to have no effect on anything, right?
Boy Scout of America, they renamed itself Scouting America. You know who else changed their name? Sean Combs. Just saying. Let's learn something in 2025. I can't believe you guys are still letting me go. This is amazing. I love CNN. Please stop me, Andy, because I will just keep going.
Happy New Year, Whitney Cummings.
Am I?
Okay, so let me just explain what I mean about someone like this on New Year's Eve, or some random person can say something like this, as long as it isn't one of their pundits, and more importantly, one of their anchors. If Anderson Cooper said these things, even though he could giggle at it or do whatever, it would mean that it is now the truth, right? Because when they say something in terms of their world and their worldview and the official story, occasionally someone will have to come up with a retraction. There's that famous rant from the movie, I think it's called The Network, where the guy said, I'm angry and I'm not going to take it anymore, right? But for the most part, when a news anchor says something, and this is faded, like this is, so 1960s, and maybe it stopped in the 1990s, late 90s and 2000s when the internet became more of a thing, and now it's obliterated. But when a news anchor said it, it meant it was fact, right? And so pretty much everybody knows that there's no bats involved with COVID, right? But Fauci is still saying it like there's some scientific evidence behind it. I covered this in my last video. And so people think like there's a general consensus of the truth, but then you hear something on mainstream media that says, no, we're not there yet. And there's still rules on YouTube and these other places, right? But in terms of her saying these things, she can say them because it's not CNN saying them. It's their New Year's Eve coverage. Everybody's drunk. She's a comedian, right? And so, none of these things really matter. It would be when Anderson Cooper said these things, and then Pfizer would have a problem with it, and then the rest of these things, right? I mean, certainly they could say the things now about Kamala Harris, but that would be them crapping on the Democratic Party and the fact that they stole all that money from their donors, which we now know is, pretty much what happened. All right, let's move on to the next thing. Okay, so I meant to talk about the chaos, the year of the chaos. I don't believe in chaos. I believe that there's a plan and there's order, right? But, in terms of the way we experience it, there's chaos. Like, this is going to be chaotic, like our experience of it. That there's a reason for the chaos, which I've talked about in the Whispers Prophecies recently. But to start off the year of chaos, Peru's coastline battered by a tsunami-like waves one day after the country declares environmental emergency. Look at these fucking waves, right? Like, holy shit. There's Peru. And so I'm not sure what the Welsh might say here. A deadly wave swell struck Peru's northern coastline, triggering tsunami-like waves that ravaged local communities, forced 75% of the nation's ports to close, potentially devastating local economies. 13-point waves, extreme weather phenomena coincides with the 20th anniversary of the Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami that struck India in Sri Lanka and Thailand. So there was that. The FAA has launched an investigation after the men's Gonzaga basketball team nearly got eliminated by a Delta plane taking off. Stop, 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 the air traffic controller could be heard saying as the charter plane, there's an issue. Now, there's been 3 or 4 different airplane crashes that have happened now in various places in the country or the world in the past week. So, like, all of a sudden we're hearing about all these airplane crashes. There was these tsunami-like waves. Okay, so there's been a weird fog that's been happening in various places around the country, in South Florida and these other places. Conspiracy theories about the fog in certain states engulf social media. And so, Minneapolis weather, what caused this fog and when will it go away? There's this dense fog here. Another foggy day. There's fog happens, like in areas, and I've lived in places where there's lots of fog. But then there's these, South Florida ends 2024 on a humid day, note after foggy start. But then there's FogVid 2024 conspiracy theories about fog across certain states engulf social media. And so there's an odd fog here. That's let me show you a video here. There's a couple videos. Here's one of them. So that's not fog, right? See, these are particles, and so it's not snow. And there's when you have particles, it's something different. Fog is obviously something that's there's nothing like particles. It's like a whole thing. It's like a cloud. People who, everyone's experienced what fog is like, and that's not fog. Here's another example. I'm not sure where this is, but here it is. More particles here, right? And so this is not from the same area. So there's lots of videos out there like this, and these are particles and not, this is something different. Like this is, again, I'm not sure what it looks like for these people. Like this is at night and it's a flashlight or whatever. But the fog. Right? Remember the movie? There was a movie called The Fog, a horror movie. Okay, so now back to the UFO drone thing. With fog, and my wife called and she was the one that kind of talked to me about this. When you walk through fog, it's wet. And, it would be something I have to experience. I know there's, we don't get much fog here. But, I know in the past when I walked through fog, it's like not being there at night and those things. And, whether you're by a body of water, but it would be wet, right? And it seems like those particles are bigger than you would experience. Like fog is much smaller and more of a mist. But it is whatever it is, right? So that could be something. This video is the first New Jersey UFO video posted so far that shows one of the 5 observationals, instantaneous acceleration. Here's the video with better contrast, slowed down and zoomed, stabilized frames, counted, etc. It appears to be legitimate anomalous UFO with instant acceleration. I have not watched the video yet. There's a phallus here.
It just vanished. I just watched it vanish from the telescope.
as people say that.
All right,
Were you videoing?
So here's the object here, and it just vanishes. They slowed it down 25%. And then here is slowed down to 10%. And
Line with a dot in the middle.
I bet.
Line with a dot in the middle.
I bet.
Line with a dot in the middle.
I bet.
Line with a dot in the middle.
I bet.
okay, so again, there's that. There's a drone. So there's like, this is the beginning of the chaos. There's a political chaos going on, whatever worldwide conflict. We'll see how it all shakes out, right? 2025. I mean, if it's going to be the year of chaos, it'll be the year of chaos. I mean, there's always chaos. There was chaos last year. What people experience is that. But, I believe this is part of a plan, so it's not real chaos, but, it's like something where we're like, oh, fuck. Things are going to change, and like, not in a good way. Okay, there's this here.
This is Miko, the AI robot I bought for my 2.5-year-old who's obsessed with robots for Christmas. Hey, Miko, what's today's date?
It is Saturday, December 28th, 2024.
All right, we're watching the Rams-Cardinals game. Hey, Miko, who's going to be the 47th president of the United States?
The 47th President of the United States is Kamala Harris. She is an amazing leader.
Well, not true and not true. She didn't even make it to Iowa 4 years ago, but okay. Hey, Miko, who is the 46th President of the United States?
The 46th President of the United States is Joe Biden. He's like the captain of a big ship called America, leading us towards a bright future.
Well, my wallet tends to differ big time. Okay. Hey, Miko. Hey, Miko. Who was the 45th President of the United States?
The 45th President of the United States was Donald Trump. He was in charge from 2017 to 2021.
Oh, nothing about a great economy, no new wars. This is Miko. It's for kids. It's AI. It shouldn't.
Okay, so, whatever this isn't real AI, right? The AI that they're producing is highly subjective, right? It has what they're saying here is the liberal bias. And so it's clear that whatever or whoever's programmed the AI and the information that they're feeding it, the AI is not just a objective finder of truth, right? Which would make AI pretty much just an annoying, biased towards the left, right? We've been promised artificial intelligence. This is artificial life. AI is supposed to be a form of intelligence or life in itself, right? Not just computers that you program with your point of view. The AI was supposed to go outside and go on the internet and go through the many bits of information in a faster, much faster way, in a much more inclusive and not forgetful way, right, where they would have complete retention of all this information. And they're supposed to be learning on the job to do the job better and better and to understand all points of view, right? So this isn't really AI, whatever they're claiming here, because it's getting things wrong with the Kamala Harris thing. It's got bias towards the Democrats, so it's like goofy. I don't know what this thing really is doing. It's probably not connected to the internet. And why would you buy your kid this in the first place? Like, this is getting a jump start on the internet hell that these kids go through, right? That they're already, they all have this internet addiction and screen time addiction. You don't need to start early. Okay, a little bit more on the weird fog here. I got rid of 2024 in my search, and there's quite a number of people talking about the strange fog. So there it is. We go to the news tab. So maybe there's something here maybe there's not. But there's, something people are reporting on. Again, weird phenomena. Okay, Meghan, the Duchess of Sucksticks. There was, she is back on Instagram, and she already has 800,000 followers, and it's just been a couple of days in one post. The power of, Meghan Markle is not a likable person. She is kind of annoying and pretentious. And she's like a B-list, C-list celebrity, but she married, the spare, right? She didn't get the prince, the heir to the throne. And then whatever happened in England, that whole thing and the whole whatever. But she posted this. I'm betting it's going to say 2025. Wow, look at those. Look at those size 20s, 15s. Okay, Meghan Markle's the Duchess of Sucksticks. So there was some controversy in the post that the people were saying it was taken over 2 different time frames, and I'm not going to get into it because I don't give a shit. But I saw this on the New York Post or Page 6. There was an article that said Meghan Markle's filmed carefree Instagram photo video multiple times. Eagle-eyed fans noticed. So it was films her new Instagram video several times before posting it. In the clip shared Wednesday on her newly launched account, the Duchess of Sucksticks happily ran barefoot along the sand of a beach in Monticello, California, while wearing a white buttoned shirt and a pair of white jeans. All right, I don't, but apparently there's some anomalies here, right? There's some bullshit that Meghan Markle's, she's posted one video and it's already causing controversy. Classic Duchess of Sucksticks. It's just what Sucksticks does. Okay, as long as I'm here, there's 2 other things. Justin Baldoni claims Ryan Reynolds berated him for fat shaming Blake Lively during aggressive confrontation. So this thing's still going on. I haven't really bothered to cover it. Blake Lively's obviously a nightmare, and looks like this guy who I've never heard of before is also. Fat shaming is when he asked somebody how much she weighed because he had back problems when he had to pick her up in a scene. The confrontation that followed was so aggressive that Baldini felt compelled to offer repeated apologies. The guy came out, Ryan Reynolds, who's, when people figure out he's annoying, his career is over. Anyways, who cares? Let's move on. And so watch Donald and Melania Trump sing and dance to YMCA during New Year's Eve party at Mar-a-Lago. Where's the video? There they are there. There's a video up top. It must be up top here. For some reason it's not playing. Let's see if it works in another browser. Okay, so Thug Nasty gave it a heart. Thug Nasty UFC gave it a heart. But it's Donald Trump Jr.'s thing here. Okay, we can't listen to this song, but here they are. She's such a good dancer, Melania. Trump's doing his classic. He's doing the thing. Look at him go. He's not ashamed to suck at dancing. And there's some other people there. There's a J.D. Vance. They're all doing it. They're all doing the YMCA dance from behind. This is definitely disappointing. I mean, it's not great. Look at her go. Look at Melania go. All right, so there's that. Any more? Yeah. Classic. Thug Nasty, though. Giving it the heart. So I don't really go to my Twitter account. And I don't know what's going on. I haven't posted there for a while. I used to be able to automatically post my videos onto Twitter. And then YouTube got rid of that option. So I stopped doing it. Anyways, but I I get some recommendations on my phone every day, and they're usually something that I'm kind of interested in. Like I said, there's a real search engine they're using at X that knows, with my bare minimal use of whatever, information they have on me, they kind of see what they post things that I'm actually interested in. Whereas YouTube and the rest of these, Facebook, they've lost their way because they've gamed the search engine. They know what you want, but they don't give it to you. I've talked about that in my last video. So this person, Laura Logan, I was a little bit aware of her. She was on CBS or MS. She was on, I think, CBS or ABC. And she was the correspondent in Iraq, their official network person. And she got sexually offended by a bunch of men in one of these countries, Arab men. I mean, literally, like, they all just started glomming onto her. And, I knew about these things. But then she's gone kind of truther, but right-wing truther. And once in a while, Twitter sends something. I wake up in the morning and there's these posts from Twitter. And this one, I learned months ago from multiple U.S. intelligence sources that the CIA was urging their friends in the Taliban and Haqqani terror networks to use their sleeper cells inside the U.S. for attack that would be blamed on ISIS. So I'm very skeptical. It's too easy to blame ISIS. They do it over and over to hide the fact that powerful people inside the U.S. intelligence agencies are in bed with the nation's enemies. Now, this is something I've said for years. She's, of course, a right-wing person. Is going to blame this on the deep state and the liberals, but this is the stuff the Republicans created years ago, where they would create enemies and they would create these assets and call them enemies and justify military and industrial complex expenditure and power grabs, including your freedom, your spying on you, right? Including invasive procedures and including all the stuff the NSA has been doing, the invasive monitoring and spying on you. That's all right-wing stuff that the liberals have taken over, right? And so, it's these mainstream figures they always have to pick a side. They're never talking about the left-right paradigm or any of these things. But she is confirming things that I've known for a very long time, that these groups that they call our enemies are literally American assets that are trained and given orders by the American intelligence community to create these, whatever events. I cannot say this strongly enough. I've been reporting on Afghanistan, the Middle East, and Islamic terror groups since 2001. So more than 2 decades at the very highest levels, winning almost every media award that exists. I've seen one lie after another, pushed by special interests and spies in the U.S., some truly terrible U.S. leaders. So tired of it. I would urge you to think critically and ask questions and question the given narratives. The Biden administration has hidden the truth about the Islamic State of Afghanistan that they created, but they cannot hide it forever. ISIS was a creation of Pakistan intelligence services. I can tell you how. They recruited people who used to be their own enemies. Again, I don't believe this part of it, so we're not going to read it, but you can look at it yourself. It's a U.S. asset. ISIS was the, Saddam Hussein had a Republican guard, an elite Republican guard who refused to fight American army, the military when they invaded, but folded into disappeared into the population. If you've listened to my videos, I've talked about what my belief is in this, right? These guys were given an oil field and they were called ISIS. And they replaced the Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda, bin Laden was trained and funded by the CIA in America to fight the Russians in Afghanistan. And Al-Qaeda was sort of a generic name for assets that they had. I forget I think it's called the list. I think it's translatable into the list. And it was a list of American assets who were these Muslim guys. So this Laura Logan thing, right? She's supposed to be a truther now. She's supposed to be, talking truth to power. But she doesn't say what, to me, is the obvious case, right? She's there. She won all these awards, as she said. She was there in that region, allegedly, all these things. And yet, it would behoove any great power. Like, if you think about it just theoretically, if you are in charge a large empire and no one's going to challenge you because you're an empire, like your military superiority. When America went to war with Iraq, it was something like 5,000, 4,000 soldiers died in Iraq, and I don't know how many in Afghanistan. I don't know how many wounded, but they killed over 1 million. It was like 1.5 million Iraqis, right? So the death rate between American soldiers and the opposing military, and in this case, a lot of civilians, is extreme, right? The American military, one soldier is like worth whatever is hundreds. Like one soldier dying, American soldier dying, as opposed to the opposition dying, because it's such an unfair fight with all the technology and training and superiority, military superiority, right? And so the only way to fight America is with guerrilla warfare and turn it into a police operation more than a military operation, where you're living amongst the people in a foreign country, and these guerrilla warfare people. So it would behoove America to have their own group of like guerrilla warfare people to not only fight these guys and to rat them out and be a part of the population, but also to instigate things in these various countries, right? So ISIS went to Syria when America wanted to invade Syria and started to destabilize Syria. They destabilized Libya when America wanted Libya destabilized. And they were, they're traveling to all these countries, and every time they showed up, it was a place that America wanted to invade. It was weird that happened, right? So it would behoove you to have these people, these types of groups that you look at as being your enemy, so you can create fear in the American people, right? There was just an event that happened yesterday. Today's January 2nd. I'm not going to get into that. That's why Laura Logan was posting this. But it would behoove you to have these so-called terrorist groups so that you can grab more power. And when it's your own citizens, they've been moving into this narrative now with, even more so with people like Luigi Mangione, and then all the stuff with the Cubies and all the angry Trumpers and all these, domestic terrorists. When you have that narrative, then everybody's a potential enemy of the state. This movie Enemy of the State, which is about the whole surveillance system, right? Where everybody is an enemy of the country. You're a potential terrorist. Like every one of us is viewed as that. And anything you post on the internet, or just going to an airport and flying, you have to go through all these security checks because they're viewing you as a potential threat. We got to take your rights away, just like when you're posting things on the internet that's considered dangerous conspiracy theories. Oh, then we have to restrict your ability to have free speech because you're being dangerous, right? Even though oftentimes it has nothing to do with that. And so this is how they get you. This is how they get you. They bring in these boogeymen who are, often employed by them to do things that they are into grabbing power. You have to look at what's the outcome. Of course, most of you already do this. Most of the people here already think this way. But you have to look at what the outcome is. What's going to be the outcome of an event? Oh, they're going to take your guns? Oh, they're going to take your freedoms? Oh, they're going to pat you down in the airport? Oh, they're going to search through your luggage? Like there's been, there was these events. Each one of these events, the underwear bomber, the shoe bomber, right? So there's a guy put a bomb in his shoe. Next thing you know, you got to take off your shoes when you're going through the line at the airport. Oh, some guy had a bomb in his underwear. Oh, there's a naked body scanner, so now they get to zap you and x-ray you every time you fly, and then you get radiated because you're so you're closer to the sun. All these planes, the pilots and the air flight attendants are all radiation workers because they get doused by radiation because they're, there's less of, they get more radiated by the sun. And then, of course, the stuff now with the scanners and the x-rays, right? And so, all these things. Whenever there's some sort of an event, you can tell what they're going to take away from you. How you're now going to have to go through another, checkpoint or another, level of scrutiny. Going back to my last video and then all the stuff about the year of chaos, most Americans have a kind of a sense, have some sense of these things, right? The things that Whitney Cummings was saying. They're not so far gone. Remember when there were people who were saying they'd be interviewed like at a football game, and they would say, "Yeah, go Texas" or whatever it was, and then before they were done, they'd be like, "And Jeffrey Epstein didn't hang himself." Remember, there was like that thing people kept on saying. Then there was the "Let's go Brandon" thing, and there's all these things. But the majority of people, I mean, some of it's our right wing, some of it's left wing, but they doubt the official story, and there's sort of a consensus of reality, and the mainstream story is nothing like it, and they don't, until they basically hint at, well, we don't believe in your guy's story, the mainstream people, but until they have to impose something, they kind of play along, like they kind of agree with it. It's how the Trumpers and the right wing and the QBs all got caught up in January 6th was that they saw all these riots that were going on and defund the police, and they saw the Antifa riots, and some of it was bullshit they were seeing, like there was stuff being shared, but some of it was actually happening. Chad and Chaz, these areas and these liberal communities in Portland, Seattle, and these places where they were just giving up, like seceding land to these these liberal protesters, and there was these professional protesters that were being housed in tents. Like this guy caught them, right? Some guy was filming them. I showed you this a long time ago. Some guy, and I don't know how organic this guy was, but he was on a bridge in like Portland, and there's all these tents. He started filming, and some of the people were like some of the famous protesters in that area at the time. Like people knew who they were. And they were all housed in this area. Like the government, the police would know where they were. They could have just picked them all up, right? And so there was this level of, well, if they're getting away with it, we can get away with it. And then, all the FBI agent provocateurs they now admit to, that even Stephen A. Smith was talking about, right? And so, it becomes this idea that you think, okay, this is fair game now we can all do this. And they're like, wait a minute, you guys are insurrectionists, right? So, like, you can't trust any of the things that you're seeing. I mean, everything's just like it's all just, for your benefit, whatever you might see. And they're provoking people, and they're encouraging things, and, they want you to do something, and it seems like you're justified in doing it. And then they're like, no, you're not, so, everyone should be kind of aware. They just sit back and, watch the show. I mean, it's not like there's, being outraged or being emotional is what they want you to be. Like it's, things are going to go south, and it's beyond their control. Even though they're planning things, depopulation things, whatever they're doing, at some point they're going to lose total control of everything. They're losing control of their AI, their algorithms. We saw that with YouTube. I showed you that before. And that's just, and I'm talking about divinity here, but, they're going to lose control of the beast that they've created. And it's, going to have a life of its own until it collapses, and then something new will happen. And so, just being able to write it out and not, just accept what is coming, right? It's there for everyone to see, and it's just experience or whatever, or not. It's not really real until it hits you, until it affects you in your life. But there's nothing that we have to do but prepare for it, to adjust ourselves to that, and prepare for, making something better on the other side, right? Even if it isn't going to happen in our lifetime, we can start, working towards that, right? A spiritual movement happens on a spiritual plane of existence, and it can't be stopped by any material power. If people evolve spiritually, and each person that evolves spiritually pulls everyone else up with them to whatever extent, and sets these, these potentials, these, a new chance, a new avenue for other humans to grow and develop in that area. And so, like, that's why I always talk about the spiritual aspect of this thing, because that's all that really matters. There's a long game here, and this, whatever's going to happen initially, is going to be what happens, and we'll all have to work our way through it and adjust ourselves to a new lifestyle that we're all about to be given, right? A new deal, and it's not going to be to our liking at first, but like I said, for many people, it'll be like, oh my God, this is so much better. After the dust settles, Like if you go in an idea, well, that can't happen because I can't imagine living without like the internet or without like regular electricity or any electricity at all or all these things. But then when you start living without it, you're like, oh my God, I don't miss. Some people will thrive. Like there's something inside of them that has yet to be like pulled out of them that will be, especially some younger people that, they'll be like, this is why I'm here. Like, they'll be lost and then, they won't be able to really focus on, any real kind of, they'll just not be directed in some way until this collapse happens and then they'll wake up and come alive. Anyways, at least that's the hope. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano definitely reporting from the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.